What up, Simps? Welcome back to another episode of Itch.y. This is the series where I go over 5 random horror games that I find on Itch.io and tell you what I think about them. The system I go on is a 5-scale rating system of stay away, meh, give it a try, worth playing, or if the game's so good you should be giving the developers money. I just want to make a quick note before we get going. To the user Walter Woltowski, you gave me 3 suggestions last episode, and I deeply appreciate that, but I am an idiot and I completely forgot to download them, so I didn't do them this week, but I will get to them next episode, I promise.
Also, stick around for the end, I have a quick announcement.
With that being said, let's get into the episode.
The first game I played today was called Gyarona. This is based on the Mexican folk tale of the weeping woman who drowned her children in a river. And that's what this whole game is, more or less. It's you exploring the mansion that the weeping woman lived in post her killing her children. The whole goal of the game is to explore the mansion, solve some very light puzzles, get some items to appease the spirit of the weeping woman. I have to say, I actually kind of really like this one. I thought for a minute at the very beginning the game was going to be a give the developers money kind of review, but it didn't quite hit that by the end of it. A lot of the scares in this game were more or less like a shadow or the full 3D model of the weeping woman just kind of like awkwardly floating from left to right or right to left in front of you at some point with like a really cheesy musical sting. It got me the first time, maybe the second time, but after that I kind of started chuckling by the time they showed up, around the 3rd, 4th, 5th time. But that being said, like overall, the game was actually pretty enjoyable. You're more or less just going through the house, you're getting keys, unlocking doors, finding items, using items. For a free little itch game, I was impressed by what you could do in it. The atmosphere of the game itself was surprisingly good. The lighting's really nice. When you're walking around at night outside of the grounds of the mansion, the lighting really looks like it's about 4 in the morning, where like the sun's just barely creeping out over the horizon and you could just see like the mildest amount of sunlight. The sound design's good. You hear like whispering of the weeping woman. I don't know if it's like on a cue a lot of the time or if it's just completely random, but I heard it quite a lot through my playthrough. But overall, I wasn't like floored by this game, but I do think this is a definite worth playing. The second game I played today was called Drained. And I had to say off the bat, like, I was really worried about this game at first when the little text screen came up and just gave you like a exposition dump right at the beginning. And then the game started, and it starts in a little kind of like cutscene where you're looking at a fellow SWAT member. And I specifically remember thinking like, oh, this actually looks pretty good. Maybe this won't be that bad. And then the game started, and I was immediately back to thinking that the game was going to be hot garbage. Well, let me just say what the game is. It's a very short horror shooter where you're going through sewers to find a way out because your SWAT team has been killed by these monsters, which I guess are just zombies. You have to save your fellow SWAT member, and then you have to leave the sewers. Well, as far as like the puzzle elements go, there's almost none to speak of. There's like a fuse to turn on lights, and you have to get a key card to open the door that will get you out of the sewer. That's essentially all that is. The main bulk of the game is exploring and shooting stuff. And as far as exploring goes, it's fine, but the shooting is really bad. If the enemies are around 4 to 5 feet away from you or farther, then the shooting's passable. It's not great, but you know, it's completely manageable, completely fine. If the monsters like get in that 4 to 5 foot range and get closer to you than that, it's really difficult to like shoot them correctly. You get a shotgun later in the game, and if you get swarmed by the zombies while wielding the shotgun, it's bad time. Overall, there's not too much to say about this one, to be honest. It's really short. You could probably beat the whole thing in 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I think it took me a grand total of 20 to beat it. Overall, this is pretty much the quintessential meh. You could do worse, but you could do a whole lot better. Okay, and the third game I played today was called Office Hours.
I got this one specifically just because of the aesthetic and the fact that it takes place in an office. I like horror games that take place in familiar locations. This one was very interesting. The mechanics of it were very unique. It's essentially, if I understand this correctly, it's a game where you're supposed to die repeatedly to memorize how to get through the game with your eyes closed. Because apparently the monster can't see you if your eyes are closed. But I don't understand how that's supposed to work, because no matter how many single times I tried, I could not manage to beat it. I spent probably 40 minutes on this over and over and over and over and over and over again. It didn't seem to work whether or not I closed my eyes. The most success I had in the game was just leaving my eyes open and trying to just like power run it. If I remember correctly, on the Itch page, they said that it was made in about a day or two. And it's obviously more of like an experimental kind of thing, just to see what they could probably get away with as far as like making a game goes. And that's not a knock on the developer. I think the idea is really, really good. I just think it could have been executed just a little bit better, a little bit more forgiving. Because if the monster sees you once while your eyes are open, it's just game over. There's unfortunately not a whole lot for me to say about this one, but I will just cut to the chase, and I say that this one is a give it a shot for sure. You might have better success with it than I did. The game manages to be tense, to be very creepy. I just wish that I could have gotten the hang of it better. The mechanics just did not seem to work in my favor. And the fourth game I played today was called Way to Heaven. This is a game that I would think going into it that I would immediately give a big ol' stay away. But it somehow manages to kind of like laser dodge all of the problems that I would normally have with a game like this. It's obviously someone's very first or one of their very first Unity games. The spaces that you're in are gargantuan for no reason. The mouse sensitivity is through the roof. It somehow manages to be unsettling. I don't know how they did it. I remember when I started the game, I went into the first room and there's like a shadow that's standing off in the distance. And it looks terrible. And you walk up to it, there's no sound or anything, but it just like starts dissipating. And I was like, oh no. I almost turned the game off right then and there. I almost downloaded another game to make up for this one. But I decided to just push a little bit further, see what the game had to offer. And I'm not singing high praises. I'm not saying you have to go to give the developers money on this one or anything. It's nothing like that, but it managed to make me feel weird. And there was one point in particular where I got genuinely kind of creeped out. The game is these menial tasks that are given to you in the top left of your screen. There's stuff like check your wife in room 1, check on your baby in room 2. But each thing has like this weird twist on it. It says check on your wife. You manage with the funky controls. You bust open the door to room 1. Your wife's just in a coffin. And you click on it and it says she looks well. So you leave. You go check your baby in room 2. Your baby is puking blood on a couch. And you say it's beautiful like a fountain. And then you pick your baby up. And then the game tells you to put it in a meat grinder. It was so casually given to me as an objective that it made me feel weird. Like the person that you're playing as is just so okay with this that like it made me feel like I wasn't supposed to be playing it. And for a game that is, no offense here, but obviously amateurish like this one, for it to have that effect on me, I think kind of actually says something. I would be curious to see what this developer does later. And then just to top off the weirdness, the game ends with a hopeful, I think, Russian ballad that I don't know what they're singing about while you're floating away on a Truman Show-esque
endless lake, and the building that you're in just gets farther and farther off into the distance. It was almost comical at the end. I'm going to give this one worth a try. And like I said, for a game to have started off with such an absolute premonition of a big old stay away, that's saying something. This is the kind of shit that I signed up to do this for, folks. I haven't made one of these little intros for one of these horror games in a little bit. I think the last one I made was on the second Itch.y. I'm glad to find another really, really, really good one. If you've seen my Resident Evil video on my channel, you know that I grew up in the 90s. I was a big point-and-click adventure guy. This is a point-and-click adventure game with a monochrome kind of aesthetic going on, which is not something you see a whole lot of. Usually if there's like a point-and-click adventure game, they kind of recreate the Myst kind of style, or a little bit after that, but not usually as far back as the monochromatic visual style. So right off the bat, the visual style alone is what got me to download the game. Without giving too much away, because I do really, really want you to play this. It's mystery, Lovecraftian kind of sort of vibe thing going on. There are puzzles, but none of them are very difficult. I think only one time I encountered a puzzle that I didn't already have the necessary item to solve it with. They are still there, and I do appreciate that they are there. It's a very streamlined sort of experience. In order to keep the game's pace from not feeling stale, and to help you not get lost, each screen has a maximum of, I think, 2 things that you can click on. There's an exception when you're in the hallway where you can go upstairs, check 3 doors. I think that's the one exception. But at no point do you feel overwhelmed about your options, about what you can do, where you can go. So those right off the bat, even if it wasn't creepy, it would still be a worthwhile experience to play it. But this game is so... This game didn't like terrify me or anything, but it got under my skin. There were a couple points in particular where the music changed and my blood ran fucking cold. I was genuinely scared to see what was beyond the next frame, and that's a fucking accomplishment. The atmosphere is so oppressive. The music is incredible. It never stops. The music does not stop. The story that you're going through, you're looking for your missing child, and there's a lot of reoccurring things that keep happening to you that made me feel bad for the character in like a game that was 23 minutes long. Do yourself a favor, get this game, give the developers your fucking money. Wow! That's failed. Go play it. I will not spoil it. Go play it. And thus ends another episode of Itch.y. I have a quick little announcement. The game Visage is getting a full release on the 30th, I believe. And if you guys want to come check me out, I'm going to be streaming that game Thursday and Friday, so Halloween Eve and Halloween. I'm going to see if I can beat it. I think it might be the scariest game I ever made. I don't know. It's up there. But yeah, I'll put my Twitch link right here, and I'll put it in the description. Shoot me some suggestions for next week, and I will see you on the next episode of... I don't know what my main series is called, and then I'll see you on the next episode of Itchy Tasty. See you later.
sa dobrą dewiecamo powiekało dysnąć. Me, kad mocurał głos. Nu, da udzielę w głos.
Tomato is a fruit, but it also a vegetable.